up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I have something that I am really excited to bring to you guys today. Today, we are talking about Everson Griffen and Jadeveon Clowney, mainly Jadeveon Clowney. Who is the better fit for the Detroit Lions? But we're mainly going to be focusing on Jadeveon Clowney because I already have a video on Everson Griffen. Let's get it started. Welcome in, everybody, to another video. I'm sorry I'm hyped today. I am hyped for this video because this is something I've been waiting to do. I've been waiting to talk about Jadeveon Clowney because, man, there is so much hype around him, and I love talking about free agents, right? I love talking about Everson Griffen. If you guys want a full-blown video where you're just like, hey, I'm here for Griffen. I want to know about Griffen. I want to know why he's all hyped up. I love Everson Griffen. I want to hear more about him. Cool. There's an Everson Griffen video just for you. This video will be more about Jadeveon Clowney. I want to get that out of the way now because some people may be looking to hear about more Griffen. There is just a strictly video on Everson Griffen. And if you guys want to watch that before or after this one, it would probably be a good idea because then you get more of a feel of how I actually feel about Everson Griffen before this video. All right, you know, it kind of tells you what you're going to look for in Everson Griffen, because the first thing I'm going to hit you guys with is this. While we compare these players, I need to make this clear right now. These players are not the same whatsoever. Sure, they are both pass rushers, right? They're both in the NFL, and they're both free agents, but they're not the same at all. Their play style is completely different from what I can tell, and yeah, let's get right into it. So I came across this article today, a Lions article. It said, which is the better fit, Everson Griffen or Jadeveon Clowney? Okay, so I'll read it. It ended up, they said Everson Griffen was because of the contract, which I think is a very fair point. I've said in a lot of my things that I like Everson Griffen a lot. He's cheaper, you know, he's a veteran, everything like that. We'll get to that in a little bit. And I think that's all important, right? It's really important. The contract is probably maybe the biggest factor in all of this. But I'm gonna get y'all with this one. We're gonna take the contracts, what both players are looking for, and toss them out the window. Forget what they might get paid. We'll come back to that. But I want to start off by throwing that out of the window. That way that doesn't blind us from what we saw about the players, right? Let's just focus on the players as individuals. If they both cost the same amount of money, which one do I want? Do I take this hand, which is Everson Griffen, or I take this hand, which is Jadeveon Clowney? Forget about the contracts. Let's just say, for example, they get the same amount. Now you may be saying, well, you can't do that because contracts are a huge factor. It absolutely is. So when we get later into this video, after we look at the players, we'll come back and say, okay, well, what about the contract situation? And we'll get into that because that is a very big factor. But for now, player versus player, who do I want on my team? Because I think it actually is a very fair debate. And it may not seem like it is because Jadeveon Clowney seems to want a lot more, but he hasn't got paid that yet. Plus, I think Everson Griffen is an absolute monster. Again, check out my Everson Griffen video if you have not. But let's get into this, man. I'm not talking. Let's get it started. Everybody has really an opinion about bringing in Everson Griffen. But a lot of people do about Jadeveon Clowney as well. Some people are on the side of I love it, I would love it. He was an absolute beast. He was the first pick in the draft for a reason in 2014. Some people say he is completely overpaid. This guy is overhyped. He is not worth the money. We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's talk about him. So the first thing I have to say is one is 27 years old, one is 6'5", 255 pounds, and the other one is 6'3", 273 pounds, depending on where you look the weights at. So 10 to 20 plus pounds is given to Everson Griffen, right? He's a bigger player. He's not as tall, but he's bigger, he's got more size to him. So that's a huge factor right away. Just that on his own makes him a little bit different, right? If you weigh 10 to 20 pounds more than another player, you're probably going to have a little bit of different play styles, which they absolutely do. They're both pass rushers, but they're going to bring different things to the game. All right, when I look at Everson Griffen, I'm looking at a defensive end that's pretty straightforward. Sure, Minnesota Vikings most of the time played a 4-3 defense. They mixed in 3-4 here and there, but he's pretty straightforward. If I sign Everson Griffen, I'm getting a guy I'm putting on the D-line. I'm probably putting him across from Trey Flowers. He's not going to be out there every snap, but he'll be out there a lot, you know, because we have guys that rotate in and out just like both players would. But for me, Everson Griffen is pretty darn simple. All right, he's coming to the quarterback every play. He's on the D-line. His job is to get pressure and help in the run. On that defensive line, when you only have three most of the time, when you only bring three out of the nickel most of the time, in Matt Patricia's defense, you need your defensive linemen to also be run stoppers. Your nose tackle is that big run stuffer in the middle. You have one guy that's your pass rusher, your power rusher. That is your Trey Flowers. And you need another guy that kind of gives you a mix, a guy that can help against the run and also hopefully can get some pressure because that's really good. Obviously, that's a huge part of it. So when I look at Everson Griffen, I see him as that guy that goes across from Trey Flowers that can give you pressure consistently, because if you just look at his stats on his own, he's obviously productive year in and year out, and he can help against the run because he's pretty good at that as well. That's what I see with Everson Griffen. That's like a brief little overview. Now, when I look at Jadeveon Clowney, I don't see that same thing. I see a lot of similarities, but he's not exactly just like Everson Griffen. See, Jadeveon Clowney isn't a guy that I'm just going to say, all right, put him across from Flowers and that's all he does. No. Now, that's not Jadeveon Clowney. I went back and watched him a lot, and I saw Jadeveon Clowney was utilized in many different ways. And while at times, and I'd say most of the time, he's probably going to be thrown on the D line across from Trey Flowers, and that's what you do, there's also going to be some other variations that they can mix in with him. Jadeveon Clowney's not simply just the guy that's coming to the quarterback every play as a defensive end. He can also drop back into the linebacker position. Many years, he's actually listed as a linebacker. He could play linebacker. He could probably fit into the jack role. Sometimes he actually lines up as an inside linebacker in blitzes. He usually doesn't play coverage from that position. But I just wanted to make that point clear that he's a way more versatile player. I mean, sure, Everson Griffen can probably play both defensive end spots, play a little bit in the inside, but so can Clowney. Clowney in the 4-3 played right end, left end. He mixed all around. He can play a little bit linebacker. He can play a little bit inside. He's usually blitzing from those spots, but he can play way more positions. He's way more versatile than what you're getting in Everson Griffen. And that's not necessarily a knock on Everson Griffen, because if what you're looking for is a guy that plays on the D-line consistently and gives me pressure, that's what Everson Griffen's for. If you want a guy that can do different things, probably play more positions, that's Jadeveon Clowney. He just may not be as productive and as great as what Everson Griffen does, because Everson Griffen's a very specific player, right? You're getting one thing specifically. Sure, he can run, stop, and get pass rush, but he's not necessarily going to be a guy that you're putting at the jack role, right? He's too big for that. He's doing his job and he's doing it well. Jadeveon Clowney can do a couple of different things, so it's just really what you're looking for, but he may not be able to do what Everson Griffen does specifically at as high of a level. So it's not a knock on either player. That just shows that they're different players. They bring different things to the table. One thing I did notice is that while Everson Griffen for 32 years old looks really good, Jadeveon Clowney is on another world of athleticism. He is way more athletic than Everson Griffen is. I mean, he can play different roles. The fact that he can play different roles is pretty much the first telltale of that. But you can just watch him. Way more athletic. He can fly around the field. He's just a lot quicker. His burst off the line of scrimmage is really good. He's just more athletic. Now, not as technically sound, I will say that. He is a way more athletic pass rusher. And what I see, if I had an archetype for each of these players, I would list Jadeveon Clowney as a speed rusher, a guy that's trying to get to the quarterback fast, trying to use that athleticism. There's a reason you were drafted with the first pick in the draft. You had to be athletic coming out of college, which you was out of South Carolina. When you look at Everson Griffen, I don't look at him and say that's a speed rusher. Even though he's not slow, I look at him and say that's a technician. That's a guy that uses techniques that he's built up over the years. This veteran player that's 32 years old that knows how to go against an offensive line, that attacks him, that will consistently go one way until you start to get used to it and comfortable, and all of a sudden he'll hit you with a quick spin. He's way more technically sound than a guy than Jadeveon Clowney, and Jadeveon Clowney is way more athletic. They're in different boats, right? They're different types of players, they're different styles. A guy like Jadeveon Clowney is taken on and off the field. Now, I'm not exactly sure why this is, and I thought for a second because I was watching the Bengals game, okay, yeah, maybe he's not comfortable yet, and it could be. You gotta keep in mind, he was only with Seattle for one season. He was only there for 1 year, so he wasn't completely comfortable, but he is taken on and off the field like Everson Griffen would. I don't know who would be taken off more, because we have a lot of defensive linemen who are probably trying to fill people in and out. For me, Jadeveon Clowney is the guy they really wanted to put on there for passing downs. In some rushing downs, he wasn't on the field. I'm assuming it's to keep your guys, healthy and not necessarily tired. When you have tired pass rushers, that's not good. We saw that last year. When everybody's tired or injured, yeah, no one's getting to the quarterback because they're tired. They can't get to the quarterback. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm beat, man. Give me a sec, give me a breather. And that's when we have guys like Deshaun Hand, Romeo Cora. That's why having depth is a really good thing, because you can sub guys in and out. I'm not sure what Matt Patricia wants. So if you're expecting me to come in here and say, oh, this is a better player, I really can't do that, because I think they're different styles, right? They're not exactly the same type of player. But I will say this, when I look at both players, I could see both these players be more appealing. And this is kind of a point I touched on earlier. Both of these players could be more appealing in their own way to Matt Patricia. If Matt Patricia is going into free agency, say for example, he wants to sign one of these two players, right? He's deciding between these two. If he's a guy that says, okay, I want a guy that can play different spots, can fill in different roles in a multiple defense that plays multiple different formations. I can't have a guy that just does one thing and he does it really well. I need a guy that can do different positions. He could be looking at Clowney and saying, again, assuming the contracts are exactly the same, I kind of like this guy better. But then he could be thinking to himself, okay, Everson Griffen, I want a guy that's on the D-line, because we don't blitz a lot, that can consistently give me more pressure than what I got before, what I got last year. Someone that I can rely upon, someone that has proved it year in and year out that he's going to give me pressure, but he's probably not going to move around to a linebacker spot. He can move around the D-line, but that's basically it. But he's way more productive, and year in and year out, I can rely on this guy. He may be saying, well, I kind of like Everson Griffen a little bit more. So I thought I would just point that out with the play styles. Now, what I see, one big knock against Jadeveon Clowney, bringing up the contracts, we know the contract situation, right, with a guy like Everson Griffen. We really don't know, not Everson Griffen. We know with Jadeveon Clowney. We don't know about Everson Griffen. I really don't know what he's looking for. But for Jadeveon Clowney's sake, he's been offered some pretty big deals. He was offered a big deal by the Dolphins, I believe, first. Then he was offered a deal by the Browns. There's just reports coming out left and right of teams that are offering him. He was offered, I heard, a pretty major deal by the Seattle Seahawks to come back. He declined that. He's declined a lot of money, right? I've heard $20 million at the highest that he's declined a year. $20 million a year, you decline that? And I guess maybe it's because he wants to play for a winner. We still don't know. We're all kind of just guessing at this point what he really wants. So he's declined a lot of money. Everson Griffen, I'm not sure, right? I don't know how many offers he's got. I don't know if he's gotten any offers yet. And again, probably not many offers are going to go out there until people can actually give, physicals of players. And no one's probably going to be signed until then. But we know that Jadeveon Clowney is looking for a lot of money, right? Clowney wants the bag. The question is he worth that much money, right? Because if you bring in Jadeveon Clowney, like the differences again that I'm pointing out with Everson Griffen, you're getting a different player here. Not only are you getting a different play style, you're getting a guy in Jadeveon Clowney who is going to be probably a long-term type of player. Yes, he was signed to a one-year prove-it deal with the Seattle Seahawks, even though I think he did prove it the years before. I mean, come on, man. 4.5 sacks, 6 sacks, 9.5 sacks, 9 sacks. I don't know if it was necessarily a prove-it deal. I feel like he's proven it, and that's why he's looking for a big deal. I don't know if he's going to get. I don't know what he's going to get. All right, people say he's not going to get his paid. Some people say he will get his paid. I don't know what he's going to get, but I know Jadeveon Clowney is looking for a ton of money, and that probably tells me that he's not a guy that wants to go out there and get 1 year, $10 million. This guy wants a long-term deal. So if you're bringing in Clowney, you got to be understanding that, hey, this is probably going to be a cornerstone of our team for the next few years. So we need to be able to utilize this and utilize him to his highest potential, and this is going to be one of the cornerstones. This is going to be where some of our money goes. A lot of our money will be tied up on 2 pass rushers in Trey Flowers and Jadeveon Clowney, and we have to be able to build around that. If that's not what we want, if we want flexibility to get out of that, if we want flexibility where we're not putting a lot of money into that positional group, then Clowney may not be the guy for you, because I feel like if you give him to a short deal, he's going to want a lot that year, a ton of money for a short-term deal. He's had to deal with that, right? He got a short-term deal last year. If you give him a small deal, he's going to want a lot. He's going to want a lot of money, at least from what we've heard he's declined so far. And the Lions, they probably don't want to do that, but they may. I'm not sure exactly what they want to do or what they can do, because, they need to win football games, so they may try it, but most likely it's probably long-term. When I look at Griffen, I don't see more than 2 years. I really don't see a more than 2 year deal if it's with the Lions specifically. I don't think the Lions give him more than 2 years. He'd be 34 at that point, going on 35. I don't think that'd be a reason. I don't think there'd be a reason to give him over 2 years. So I think max 2 years, probably a lot cheaper than what Jadeveon Clowney wants. So that's a huge difference in what you're looking for. So it really then depends on what the Lions are looking for. Now, I think a lot of people look at Clowney and they say, okay, well, he wants all this money. He's overhyped. The numbers aren't there. And a lot of people simply look at sacks. And I'll admit, I've done that before. I simply look at sacks and I'm like, really? 3 sacks? You want 20 million and you had 3 sacks? I could give you 3 sacks, even though I can't. But you know what I mean? You're just like, are you serious? But you also got to keep in mind, this guy does a lot more than just the sack total say. I mean, honestly, okay, there's a reason. I was like, why is he so highly graded on PFF? He still did a lot of things. For example, last season, 3 sacks, right? He still had 30 pressures and 10 quarterback knockdowns. 10 quarterback knockdowns is not something to joke around with, and he had only 11% missed tackle percentage. He did everything else. He could help in run support. He still got to the quarterback a ton. He just didn't get a lot of sacks. So when I watched him and I'm watching him play, I see him getting back there a lot. He's just not getting a lot of sacks, but a lot of times he'll force, the ball at quarterback's hands. A lot of times he'll be up there trying to knock it down. And you got to keep in mind that, sure, last year wasn't great, and some people will say, well, that's because he had J.J. Watt, so the only reason he was good. Keep in mind, Everson Griffen's had good players around him, too. I mean, Hunter just had 14.5 sacks, so we can't necessarily just say because of Watt. But in 2018, when he was with the Texans, I mean, his numbers were off the charts. His numbers were ridiculous. In 2018, this guy in 15 games played had 48 pressures. 48 pressures and 11 quarterback knockdowns. So I kind of see where he's come from, looking for a big deal, but last year was definitely a down year. And I think there's some factors in it, but it was a down year. At the end of the day, it wasn't his best season because I see some mental lapses. Sometimes he won't know the play starting. This guy, to me, not as productive, not as consistent, not as reliable as a guy as Everson Griffen. It's what are the Lions looking for, okay? Because if they really want to go out and if they can find a way to give him a 1 year deal for like $15 million a year, which I don't think they're going to be able to, then maybe they go that route. But most likely, I see Everson Griffen as being a long-term deal if the Lions try to sign it or whoever tries to sign him. So that, to me, if I'm guessing for what the Lions are looking for, I would say that's probably not what they're looking for. We don't know the future of Patricia or Quinn. They don't want to be locked into a big deal. Okay, they're trying to win games now. So if that's the case, I think Griffen makes more sense on the money side of things. And I think that's why people always say that, because he's going to be a short-term deal. He's going to be cheaper, and he's a guy that's more productive and consistent. He's going to give you what you'd expect. What you think you're going to get, you're going to get from him. You're just going to get it every year in and year out. He hasn't shown us years where it's like, oh, snap, that's not good. Those are kind of concerning. He's not like this. He's just like this consistently. He's consistently doing his job year in and year out. But again, they're different styles. If I want a guy that's on the D-line all the time, that's trying to get pressure because, you're not going to blitz a lot, then he makes sense. If you're going to blitz more in 2020, maybe Clowney makes more sense because you can bring him at the linebacker spot and blitz him off the edge. They're just different styles, right? They're different styles, and that would allow you to keep hand on the field. It would also probably take time away from guys like Julian Okora. There's really a lot there. There's a lot of pros and cons for each side, but I think for the Lions' sake, if I had to guess what they're looking for, Griffen makes more sense. I think for some teams, Clowney would be solid. I don't think he's as bad as the 3 sacks show, but I also don't think he's productive enough or consistent enough for me to say that it's worth it for the Lions to give him a huge deal. Not after you gave a huge deal to Trey Flowers. You can't be locked up on 2 defensive ends when you don't blitz. I understand having 2 good pass rushers is a great thing, but you are all about cornerbacks. I don't think you can just necessarily put all your money into that position unless every year you're just going to continue to, let your cornerbacks go and then draft new ones. I'm not sure how you're going to do it. I just don't think the Lions will necessarily want to put a big deal into Jadeveon Clowney, not knowing their future. I think Everson Griffen for them makes more sense, but I also think Clowney is a good player. I don't think he's bad, all right? Maybe he's a little bit overrated where some people may look at him as like the top edge rusher because he's not. There's a reason he's not got signed yet, and I don't know if he will get signed. I don't know how much he's going to get, but I also do feel like for certain teams, maybe he works out, but for the Lions, I don't think it makes sense. You're going to give him a 4-year deal. He's already 27, so he's not the youngest player. Sure, he's in his prime now, but you don't blitz a lot anyways. He's someone that's going to be locked up for a while, and you don't necessarily want that when you don't know your future. You need someone that's productive. He's shown some consistencies. I really haven't seen it with Griffen, so I think Griffen makes more sense, but I don't think Clowney's not a bad player. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.